Welcome to Danja Digital. I am your chief storyteller, Dana, and today in our newsletter, I thought I would do, I guess I can't technically say something different because every newsletter is different. This is only the third, I believe, installment. But today, we are roughly a week out from the beginning of NaNoWriMo at the time of recording this video. And I thought we'd take a little field trip. I thought to myself, what are some things that I could maybe share if you are intending on participating in NaNoWriMo and you are still struggling to kind of get things in order, or even if you're not participating in NaNoWriMo, what are some things that I can share with you to help move your story forward before you start writing. So this edition is really focused on me showing you a little of the inside details of how I prepare to write a story, and not for you to do everything that I do. I don't know how to say it. Do everything that I do, but hopefully to help you gather different things that could be helpful to you, and for you to hold on to the things that will assist you and let go of the things that don't serve you. And so in this edition, we will be taking a field trip into my Scrivener document, and I will not in this edition answer any specific questions, but it will center on this idea of, I have my idea to write my story. How do I move forward? And we'll kind of cover that a little bit. And so I look forward to seeing you on the inside of this edition. If you are sticking around, I'll see you on the inside. If not, don't forget to thumbs up this video and subscribe to my channel. Also, don't forget to visit me online at danjatales.com. And yeah, let's go ahead and get this started. I'll see you in a bit.
I've been down so in love like 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 in love like in love like
Okay, we are inside of this issue of Danja Digital. I am Dana, a USA Today best-selling author. I am a developmental editor. I am a writer of several romance genres, and today we are talking about what do you do once you have your idea and you want to move forward. Now, the funny thing about all of this is I really should script it, but I don't script it. So you guys are getting it off the cuff, but I am prepared to show you inside of my Scrivener document for one of the stories. It was a short story that I recently did. Before we go there, what I want to start with is different people do things different ways, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's also nothing wrong with trying different things. And that has been such a benefit to me when it comes to writing stories frequently, is that for each project I tend to do things a little bit different, always doing slight adjustments to my process to make it better, and better is more efficient, or to be able to accomplish a short story versus my most recent novel being almost 80,000 words. And so there's something totally different that goes into your mind or your mindset when you are preparing for a story. So it does not mean that I do this every single time, but for the most part, what I'll show you today is consistent, and I found it to be very helpful in making me successful of getting from the beginning hook or that first line of your story to the end, even though I don't technically write that, but the end, at the end of the story. So we're going to get into this. This is the perfect time for you to pull out paper so that you can take any notes, that you can prepare to ask any questions. And if there's any part of this that you would like for me to expand on, this would be a great time for you to ask. So I'm going to get into this so we can move this issue along, because this week I do not have any specific announcements. There'll be some more testimonials coming up. And if I think of something, I'll let you all know. I think my biggest thing that I have as far as Danja tells announcements is that I'm working actively on finishing up my certification with StoryGrid. And so that has been taking up quite a bit of time, that writing and clients. So yeah. So now we're going to get on into it. I know I did that fast. This is what I really want to show you today. So let's get into this field trip, and I will see you at the close. Here we go. You all, I have recorded this several times. So if I'm stumbling over my words, it's because I want to make sure I haven't said it before, but that I don't miss anything. So what we are going to do is take a look inside of a Scrivener document, just a portion of it from a short story that I wrote called You Owe Me. Mainly, this is all about hopefully giving you some idea of how you go from having the idea to starting to develop the information that you need to move into the phase of writing. I believe part of this would also help even if you're not a plotter, because for me, I see it as being a roadmap. So here is not this. Let me get the Scrivener document. Okay, so when I work on my story, I usually start off with I did not bring it up, my blurb. And here we go. And with the blurb, I write it before I write usually anything else. Now, this doesn't mean that I don't already have the idea. Usually the idea sits with me for a while. And by the time I'm able to write the blurb, I know that I'm ready to start the development process for the manuscript. So this is one of the first things that I write. And for me, the blurb is my North Star. It helps me, the blurb as well as my foolscap. It helps to keep me on track. And I honestly believe it's one of the vital things that helps me to write faster. And I don't consider myself a faster writer. I think that's all relative, but in a sense of moving from story to story, because I'm grounded in the story that I'm telling at that moment. And this is part of what I need to feel grounded. And it doesn't mean that I don't write without it, but when I don't have it, I feel it. So I try my best to always have it. So I write the blurb. I usually include the hero and the heroine, their names, and I will sometimes have tropes here, usually because this blurb will be written and everything months before the book is written, or I even start the book. And having the tropes listed there will help me to jog my memory until I get to the next portions that I'll show you. And here are notes. Sometimes it's about research that I need to do. Maybe sometimes it may be scenes and things like that. Or changes and iterations that I want to do to the blurb. But this is an active working document usually. And most of the things that I'll show you today are. So once I finish my blurb and I'm ready to get started, I typically start with my foolscap or my story spine. And normally for me, it's the story spine. Now, my story spine evolves from the summary, and I did not do a good job of saving that for this document because, again, these are always active live documents, so they evolve, and like first that starts off as summary, then it turns into story spine. So I write from top to bottom of what I basically think is going to happen at the beginning, the middle, and the end of my story. And then once I work on my foolscap, I come back and I break them up into the points: my beginning hook, my middle build 1, I write a midpoint shift for myself because I love to know where I think my characters are going to be in the middle, because it's almost like I'm racing to the middle, and then from the middle I'm racing to the end. And then my middle build 2, and then my ending payoff. This is terminology that is usually used with StoryGrid, and it just works for me because I know immediately what that means. And for you, it just may be beginning, middle, and end. It may be first act, second act, third act. It may be first act, second act, third act, fourth act. The point is getting it in workable sections, and you'll hear my dog walking around. Workable sections, so that I can then begin to dive deeper into my plot. Once I finish this, and I go to my fool's cap. Now, the fool's cap a lot of times is probably the first iteration of before I get to the story summary or the story spine, and this changes quite a bit. But once this is kind of nailed, I could pretty much write a story from it, just this. And I did make note to try to find a link on StoryGrid regarding the Fool's Cap. If you want to know more about it or hear me talk about it, just let me know. But it is amazing, and you can pretty much summarize your entire story in these 15 to 20 points. Once I finish my Fool's Cap, between this process and during this process, I begin the process of developing my characters. And here's one. I don't get into a lot of the stuff that I see some people do, but I do know that there are certain questions that I must know about my character, and the rest of it comes to me as I'm writing, and I continue to write in here and have different iterations of this document. But usually, for the most part, I start off with their role or their job or their profession, a sentence kind of describing them so I get their essence, and these other things come with time. A lot of it I do have, like sometimes my plot twist. I know my their goals, and that again evolves, and I do write a pretty a nice size summary. Having the summary is something that helps me get re-grounded, and I'm moving because I don't want to leave it on there. I don't want you to be able to read it. It grounds me in what I'm doing, so that when I am coming back to the story after being away for a while, that it will help me get back in that character's skin, if that makes sense. So having that summary does that for me, and I read the summary for both of my main characters, and if I need to, my antagonist or villain, before I get into a writing session, if I need to reground myself. The next step that I do is my skeleton outline. Again, this is another one of the documents for this story that I didn't do a good job of saving the original draft. So the original drafts is usually just the chapter number, like chapter 1 and a sentence, and I will have that for every chapter that I plan to write. And then once I have that nailed down and it feels good, I go back and create a paragraph. And this paragraph it can be shorter, it can be longer. The main thing is kind of figuring out what the goal of the chapter is. Usually trying to have some sort of emotional, like where they are emotionally. And then anything that stands out to me about the chapter. Sometimes like this, it includes dialogue. And a lot of these little tidbits are things that have come to me over the course of months that I have saved in a little document that I put on my phone. And then it begins to slowly get transferred into these active documents. Once I have that paragraph will turn into 300 to 500 words. And that will move into, again, I apologize. I didn't save that because I didn't know I will be showing it, but it'll turn into like a 300 to 500 word summary for that chapter. And that then turns into the full chapter. What I will say is having these chapters, all of this document, the reason why I don't have other iterations of it is because it evolves and it changes the more I write. And I normally will have a paragraph for each chapter, but I don't expand them to the 300 to 500 words until I'm closer to getting to writing it. Here you will even see that some of them are longer now, but that's because the more that comes to me, I come back to this portion, add those tidbits in there, then I go back to what I'm writing, after the end of that writing session or that sprint. Any of this I can expand on individually, but the point of this is that I allow myself to evolve into this. If you have a week left, like we are right now, from the time of this recording, or you're trying to say, okay, what steps do I want to take to develop? I have the idea. I would start with the blurb, and to me, this is the idea. This is the concept for the book, or this is the imagery that I have in my mind when I'm writing. And then I would move to the foolscap. I can talk more about this. I can put a link, but the foolscap is essentially what's going to happen in your beginning, what's going to happen in the middle, and what's going to happen at the end. You don't have to set it up like this, but knowing, how the chapter jumps off, what's going to be, how is it going to progress from there? What is going to be the crisis, or dilemma that your characters are going to experience in that beginning, and what is their response to that dilemma or that crisis question, and how will it resolve? And remembering, when you go from your beginning, you got to transition into that middle, right? And the middle, this is where all the action happens. Now for this story, it was before when I outlined it was before I transitioned into the 20-point foolscap, which I prefer, but since it was a short story, I didn't do it for this one because, again, it is a short story. But here, this is kind of where a lot of the magic happens. 50% of your story happens in the middle, so this may be longer, but having just these points are good to keep me on track. And then, of course, how it ends. And sometimes I'll put, if I have an epilogue, or up here I'll add if I have a prologue. Then the other two things is I would work on my characters, and lastly I would work on my skeleton outline. If I'm going to write 20 chapters, or roughly 20 chapters, having a 20 chapter skeleton outline just kind of helps to ground where you're going, and helps you to move forward with a plan. That's all that I have for this segment. Again, if you have any questions, comments, want me to go into detail, let me know. But I think this is quite a bit to kind of get you settled and moving into the next phase. So I will see you in the closeout comments. I'm going to close out this newsletter. I'm going to apologize in advance if you hear the beep of the fire of we need to change the battery and it just is happening, but if I don't get this done, it won't happen. But I hope what you will take away is look at the different steps that you can do in order to lay your foundation. What are the things that help to motivate you, to move you from chapter to chapter when you are developing your story? For me, having my foolscap, having my story spine, or my story summary, depending on the length of the book, also then kind of allocating each of those chapters, which are usually a paragraph or so. I start with the sentence, go from top to bottom as a sentence, then I move my way up and I expand on those where that sentence will turn into somewhere between a paragraph, and then it goes from a paragraph to being about 300 to 500 words when I prepare to write it. And so that is usually done. I'll do those in 2 to 3 chapter blocks over time, and usually I try my best to do it in close proximity to when I need to write it. The reason why I don't go from the paragraphs into those chapter kind of summaries more so, or those chunks, is because the story evolves. So that's the next thing. Don't be afraid for your summary, for your chapters to change. That is why I always get a little bit confused when people feel like they don't have flexibility because they plot. But I feel as though if you give yourself room to make iterations, it's going to always change. But what I have found over time is the essence of the story remains the same, and those iterations only make the story better. So sometimes it's that your plotting kind of gets rid of the easy stuff in advance. And so just give yourself room. The last tip that I will give in this is have fun. I mean, NaNoWriMo can be, some people think of it as a junk book. I don't think of it as that. I think you can really write a book that you can turn into something that's doable. And I think it's all about your mindset and how you go into the process. So therefore, when you go into it, think that, hey, this is what I'd like to do with this book. I'd like to have a solid first draft so that I can go into editing, or that it'll give me a great understanding. You hear my dog. Understanding about where this story is going. And having 50,000 words is an amazing start. It's a big start. So if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can leave them in the comment section. Visit me online at danjatells.com. I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to seeing you on the next edition. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you hopefully sooner than later. Take care. Goodbye.
I've been down so in love like. I've been down so in love like. I've been down so